Hello there, everybody. Welcome to Difference Makers. My name is Pastor Tyler Warner from Calvary Chapel, Trustville. Thank you for joining us today. I got an exciting one. I've been working on this topic for a while about learning to change the game. That if you feel like you're not going anywhere, you're just spinning your tires, it's time to make a change of some kind. That's what we're going to be talking about today. But first of all, I want to remind you that if you want to find out about our church and our ministry, you can go to calvarychapeltrustville.com. And we are also building something over there. We're building something called the Ironworks Media Network. You can go to ironworks.media, where we are building the premier Christian resource network for Calvary Chapel and beyond. BGTV is helping us do that. I'm so grateful every time I come in here, and I got to give them props every time I do that. But what is this? Well, we're learning to aggregate all of the different resources, first of all, that we are building as a church. And in the future, we want to start adding other ministries involved that are writing books, that are producing podcasts, that are making videos, all the things like that. We got a conference coming up. By the time you see this year's conference may have already happened. It's coming up in the first weekend of June. You can go and take a listen to it right now. Go see all the sessions. We got 2 book launches coming in 2025. We've got 1 theology book, and we got 1 missionary biography that I cannot wait to talk to you all about when it releases this November. The other one comes out in June as well. You can go to ironworks.media and join our mailing list for a free gift. We got 2 free ebooks that you can download right away, and we are working to make that mailing list something special. Not just an announcement of upcoming things, but that is certainly the primary purpose. But we're working really hard to make this something really cool, and you guys can be there right at the beginning and see what else we got going on. But for today, you're listening to Difference Makers. Thank you for coming in. It's great to be here. All right, so as always, what do I say? The purpose of Difference Makers is to motivate you, to inspire you to live the life that God has called you to live. Every single one of us has a calling from God. 1 Corinthians 7:17, we have an assignment from heaven. Ephesians 2:10 says that we have works prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. So my goal here is to get you inspired and motivated to do that, to take all of the best of motivation and inspirational lessons and apply them to the things of God, which does not just mean ministry, does not just mean reading your Bible every day. That's important, but to every aspect of your life, what God has called you to do is to be motivated to work hard and succeed. And we talk an awful lot about working hard here. We just got done talking about how Solomon prospered, and one of the things we discussed was organization and administration. We've talked about putting in the time and grinding and hustling and whatever you want to call it in order to get it done. I've done my fair share of that since I've been planning this church here. We're coming up on 7 years this September, and it's been a lot of work. It's been hard. There's been days carrying garbage in the sun. There's been days getting under and cleaning the toilets and fixing the toilets because nobody else is going to do it, and trying to find where that weird smell is coming from in the sanctuary. There's all sorts of things, and we want to get you motivated to do that. But I can anticipate an objection because I've heard it many, many times. And you don't just hear this according to the Word of God. You hear this anytime you listen to somebody that is trying to tell you that the way to get ahead is to work hard, to do the best you can, and you will eventually succeed. Well, there are an awful lot of folks that get pretty pessimistic about that. I've worked with people, for example, where somebody will say something, you just got to work hard and everything's going to come to you. And then there's some old salt that's worked at this dead-end job for a long time. He goes, that's not true because I work harder than any CEO and I work harder than any, the president, yet I don't make any money. Here I am. So it's obviously not about working hard. It's just about who you know. The system is corrupt, whatever it may be. I'm not intending today to comment on whether or not the system is corrupt. I'm not intending to comment on whatever conspiracy theory you may happen to favor today. I'm just trying to address that pessimism that you can come across. That you say, I thought the deal was that I work hard in school, I go to college and get my degree, I get out with my degree, I get a job, I work hard at that job, and eventually I become a millionaire and I retire and they put my face on the $6 bill or whatever it is. And there's been an awful lot of us that have realized that that's not quite how it tends to turn out. If you work hard in your life, and you never move forward, it is very, very frustrating. The Bible says hope deferred makes the heart sick, meaning if the thing that you've been hoping for just keeps on getting kicked down the line, not today, but tomorrow, not tomorrow, but next week, not next week, but next year, not next year, but maybe in a few years after that, that makes your heart sick, and it makes for bitter people. Every job I've ever worked at, there's been somebody that's been working that job too long that feels like they shouldn't be there anymore, and they're bitter about it. And that's the person that I want to address today. If you feel like you've done everything that you can and you deserve that promotion and yet you haven't gotten one, you're working the same thing that you've been thinking was your starter position and you're still there. Or maybe you're working hard. You're wearing yourself out. You're working 6-7 days a week, long hours, and yet the money's just not coming. You got enough to get by, maybe enough to, go out for dinner every once in a while, but nothing like you imagined or envisioned or like your friend has. Maybe you've been working hard and you're still not respected. Nobody cares. You go home and dad still doesn't look up to you and nobody's proud of you and your wife maybe looks down on you or whatever it may be. The community just doesn't care about all that you do. And you look around and say, as hard as I work for this place, you'd think they care. Or maybe I still don't have a girlfriend. I'm still not married. I've been the nicest guy, been trying to make a little money, been trying to get ahead, and yet nobody cares about me. Well, here's what I want to address today. There's lots of reasons why this could be, but there's just one that I want to point out. You may be doing everything right, working hard, etc. You show up early, you stay a little late, you work while you're at work, you do everything that you can to make sure you're doing a good job. You don't shirk, you make sure that all the trash bags are taken out when you leave, and you clean up after yourself, and you pre-bus your table when you have a waiter come over. Here's what may be the problem, though. You may be competing in the wrong arena. It could be that you are working hard, and maybe that you're even working smart. Maybe you have maximized your job. But here's what I'm talking about today. You may be in whatever domain it is, whether that's a creative thing, a ministry thing, a work thing, whatever. You maybe have found the limit of what this opportunity is going to give you. What this way of doing things is going to give you. Maybe you've hit the wall, that this is it. This is as much as you can get out of it. That you thought it would be more, but it's not. Maybe there's somebody standing in your way. Who knows? But what I want to tell you today, if you're in a situation like that, the answer is to change the game. The answer is you've got to switch up what you're doing if you think that I'm putting in way too much work for this not to be succeeding and prospering for me. This is true in churches quite a bit. And because there's in the ministry, there's a sense of course, spirituality, it can get kind of confused and guys can get real guilty when they don't need to be. When it's something like we've been at this church building for 5 years and we've got some good people, but the people just aren't coming out to it. It seems like our church might be the reason. Well, it might be time to move to a new building. But sometimes guys go, but that feels carnal. That feels you're appealing to people's flesh, and it really shouldn't matter what building you're in. Okay, but maybe you've maximized what can be done in that place. That's entirely possible. It could be that way at your job, where you're working hard and you're coming home exhausted, and it's not going anywhere, and your boss has made very clear that you're not going to be moving up anymore. It's probably time to change jobs, to move on and go somewhere else and do something different. If you're living in a neighborhood and you really want to make that house something great and make it your family home, but the neighborhood is just going downhill, it's not coming up as fast as you'd like, or maybe the town has gone down. You can blame whoever you want, but economics happen and communities go downhill. Maybe it's time to move. These are the kind of things I'm talking about. If you're writing a book. I knew a guy that was writing a book in a writer's group I used to go to, and he was so convinced that this book was going to be the bestseller. This was going to be the one. So he poured everything into this book. He finished it, and then he revised it, and he revised it again, and he revised it again, and he revised it again. And I'm talking seriously, more than a decade has gone by, and he hasn't written anything else. And to that guy, I wish I could tell him, and I have kindly, but to be as blatant as I can, you got to change the game, bro. You got to write something different. You got to find a different vein in which to dig. If you're mining for gold and you keep digging through rock, you're working hard, but if you're not hitting gold, you got to change up. There's no gold here. You following me? I hope you're tracking with me what I'm trying to say here, that you've got to be willing to change the game, shake it up, and take a step of faith. I got 2 Bible stories I want to tell you, and these are some of my favorites. So maybe I'm doing myself a disservice by doing them both at once when I could have talked about both of them and get 2 episodes out of it, but who cares? Let's just start with 2 Kings chapter 7. 2 Kings chapter 7, y'all know I'm a verse-by-verse Bible teacher, so we got to do a little bit of verse-by-verse every once in a while here. We're in 2 Kings chapter 7. What has happened is the Israelites are surrounded. The city is besieged. Now, if you know what a siege is, the other army would basically camp out outside the city with their army, not let anybody leave, and there really wouldn't be that much fighting. Sometimes you would assault the walls, sometimes you would dig underneath it to try to make it go faster, but the most common strategy was just pitch up camp and don't let anybody leave the city. And while you did that, everybody inside the city is slowly running out of resources. And by the time you get to this point in the story, the city is starving, and people are starting to eat each other, literally. They were selling donkey heads to eat. And then you see the king runs into these women that were arguing because they had eaten one of their sons the day before because they were so hungry. And then they were looking for the other one, but the lady was hiding it. And it's that desperate. And the whole story is about how the Lord provided for them. But there's an amazing little tidbit in the middle here that I want to read. This is the situation. The city is under siege. And in verse 3 of 2 Kings 7, there were 4 men who were lepers at the entrance to the gate. Little note here, a little biblical pet peeve of mine. Some people try to say it's so unfair the way God said that the lepers had to be outside the camp because they were unclean. Friend, you've got to look at this practically. If your city is under siege, you cannot have people with infectious diseases running around causing a plague on top of a famine. They needed to be outside the gates for the safety of the people inside. That doesn't make it a good deal for them, but that's just the way it was. There was no medicine to cure these things. So they're sitting at the entrance of the gate. Outside the city, there's the army. And they said to one another, "Why are we sitting here until we die?" If you got your Bible open, man, underline that. Type that up, tape it to your mirror every morning. Why are we sitting here until we die? If we say, "Let us enter the city," the famine is in the city, and we shall die there. And if we sit here, we die also. So now come, let us go over to the camp of the Syrians. If they spare our lives, we shall live. And if they kill us, we shall but die. Don't you like that? We shall but. The worst that can happen is we can die. We're going to die if we stay. We die if we go inside. So we might as well go over there because then we might not die. And that's the best opportunity they had. So they arose at twilight to go to the camp of the Syrians. But when they came to the edge of the camp of the Syrians, behold, there was no one there. For the Lord had made the army of the Syrians hear the sound of chariots and of horses, the sound of a great army. So they said to one another, "Behold, the king of Israel has hired against us the kings of the Hittites and the kings of Egypt to come against us." So God sends this sound of a stampede and battle that they heard in their ears, a miracle of some kind, obviously, so that they thought, "Oh my goodness, mercenaries are coming after us. It's time for us to run for it." So verse 7, they fled away in twilight and abandoned their tents, their horses, and their donkeys, leaving the camp as it was, and fled for their lives. And when these lepers came to the edge of the camp, they went into a tent and ate and drank, and they carried off silver and gold and clothing and went and hid them. Then they came back and entered another tent and carried off things from it and went and hid them. So they walk in, there's nobody there. They go in and there's food and drink and they're having a party. And then they start taking all the riches and burying them somewhere so that when the leprosy is cured, not all leprosy was the Hodgkin's disease where it's going to kill you. Some of it could be cured and would go away over time. They're making bank doing this. But then verse 9, they said to one another, "We are not doing right. The day is a day of a good news. If we are silent and wait until the morning light, punishment will overtake us." There's a lesson we talk about evangelism in this passage, but I'm going to leave that for another time. "Now, therefore, come, let us go and tell the king's household." So what they're saying is, look, this isn't right. First of all, it's not moral. Secondly, if they catch us doing this, that we knew that there was food and we let a couple more people starve in the middle of the night, we're dead anyway. So they go back and they tell the people, and there's an amazing blessing that comes there, and they all get rich because the Syrians left all the spoil. It's an amazing story. What I want to look at is how this affects your life. The city was under siege. They were starving, they were sick, and they were dying. And that might be how you feel. You feel like I'm trying to fight the battle of the Lord. I'm trying to do what God has called me to do. I'm trying to improve at my craft. I'm trying to work hard, and I'm not slacking off. And yet it seems like I'm getting nowhere. In fact, things seem to be getting worse because every day I get a little older, and it gets a little harder to put up with it. But the thing about this story is they had already been liberated and they just didn't know it. You had a city full of people sitting there thinking they were besieged when they weren't. God had already provided the deliverance, and yet they were so stuck in their mindset that they couldn't get out of it. And this is where a lot of us may be today, that you are stuck in your mindset even though God has already liberated you. You might be saying something like, "God, I hate this job. Why do I have to work here?" And God says, "Well, who told you to work there?" "God, I hate that I'm living in this neighborhood." God says, "Why are you living there?" "Lord, I picked this career and I thought I knew what it was going to be, but if there's no money in it and now I'm miserable." And God goes, "Well, then change it up." I had to deal with this a lot when I was a youth pastor because you'd get these good Christian kids that would go work at McDonald's or Wendy's or whatever, and their boss would ride them hard and try to squeeze the last drop out of those high school kids, and they'd say, "I can't come to church. I don't have time to see my friends. I don't know what to do." And I would sometimes say, "Well, why don't you just quit?" And they go, "Well, I can't quit. I can't leave him in the lurch like that." And we're like a family there, believing all that HR nonsense, right? And I said, "Look, that's not your family. Quit and find a different job." And it was always so relieving for them to hear that. And that might be what some of y'all need to hear today, that God has liberated you from this bad situation. And what you've got to do is get up and go. They finally realize we're going to die if we stay here, and that might be where you are. Why will you sit here until you die? Change the game. Get up and do something different, because you might say, well, I might die. I might lose. I might fail if I try something different. Well, if you're failing now, why not just give it a try? Why not just get up and do something? Just see what comes of it. Nothing ventured, nothing gained, as they say. When they finally got up and moved, they were able to experience blessing. They were able to experience victory, and their names were immortalized. Well, not their names, I guess, but their story was immortalized forever in the Scriptures. Likewise, you might be stuck, but you're afraid to get up and move. You need to be more afraid of the stagnation that is going to come upon you if you stick with it. If you say, I'm a hard worker, you need to go to somewhere that is going to honor that hard work. If you're trying to, get into some industry, I don't know, you're trying to become, a video game designer. That's a cool thing to do, but that's a flooded market. Have you ever considered trying something where you can use those same skills somewhere where it's wanted and needed? Sometimes we talk about our jobs or something as if, we ought to be paid, how significant the work is. That's not how it works, guys. We say, why aren't teachers paid more? Because there's an awful lot of people that want to be teachers. That's why. And it's easy to do that. Not a lot of people make it as a brain surgeon, though, and people do tend to like their brains. So it's going to be a better opportunity. So what you've got to do is evaluate what's the best thing that could happen. Maybe it's changing your trajectory. I know folks sometimes they're broke and they're struggling and they're barely getting by and they're having to pick up extra shifts and these little part-time things. And I just want to say to them, look, get a different job. Change your career. And they might say, well, I went to school for this. I'm passionate about it. So are you more passionate about having more to provide for your family? Are you more passionate about having a better relationship? Maybe your boyfriend or girlfriend is just they don't love the Lord and they don't respect you and they don't love you and they're not treating you right. Change the game. Now, if you're married, you got something else to do. You made a vow before God, so don't get that twisted up. But change up. Maybe what you got to do is change the way you talk to your spouse. You got to change the way you react when they do something to you. Change the game. Why sit here until we die? If you're losing anyway, why not step up and try for a maybe? Roll the dice again. Change the game. All right, that's story number 1. 1 Samuel chapter 14 is story number 2. And this is the ultimate taken steps of faith story in the Bible. It's even better than Peter walking on water. You know why? Because Jonathan didn't sink. Jonathan actually succeeded when what he stepped out to do. So this one's a little longer, so I'm going to read it a little faster, but it's good to hear it. This is during a war against the Philistines where the children of Israel are losing. Their allies are defecting to the Philistines. They're hiding in the caves. And Saul is on top of the mountain having a prayer meeting with the Ark of the Covenant there. Oh, isn't that so nice, you think? But it wasn't nice because he's praying about, God, what should we do while his kingdom is being destroyed? God's like, Saul, I called you to be king. Go defend your people. You're hiding behind prayer as a shield for your cowardice. But let's see what Jonathan does. One day, Jonathan, the son of Saul, said to the young man who carried his armor, come, let us go over to the Philistine garrison on the other side. But he did not tell his father. Saul was staying in the outskirts of Gibeah in the pomegranate cave at Migron. Little note, pomegranates are often a symbol of luxury in the Bible. So it could be that Saul is just relaxing while his armies are being defeated. Who knows? The people who were with him were about 600 men, including Ahiah, the son of Ahituv. Don't you love these names? Ichabod's brother, the son of Phinehas, the son of Eli, the priest of the Lord in Shiloh, wearing an ephod. And the people did not know that Jonathan had gone. Within the passes by which Jonathan sought to go over to the Philistine garrison, there was a rocky crag on the one side and a rocky crag on the other side. If you look this up, you can see this location. It's, of course, still there, and it's amazing to look at. The name of the one crag was Bozez, and the name of the other, Seneh. The one crag rose on the north in front of Michmash, and the other on the south in front of Geba. Jonathan said to the young man who carried his armor, come, let us go over to the garrison of these uncircumcised. It may be that the Lord will work for us. For nothing can hinder the Lord from saving by many or by few. As in, let's go try to win the battle by ourselves. Maybe God will help us. Verse 7, his armor bearer said to him, do all that is in your heart. Do as you wish. Behold, I am with you, heart and soul. Then Jonathan said, behold, we'll cross over to the men. We'll show ourselves to them. If they say, wait until we come to you, then we'll stand still in our place, and we will not go up. But if they say, come up to us, then we will go up, for the Lord has given them into our hand, and this shall be the sign to us. So both of them showed themselves to the garrison of the Philistines, and the Philistines said, "Look, Hebrews are coming out of the holes where they have hidden themselves." By the way, at this time in history, Hebrew was an ethnic slur. It was not a nice thing to be called a Hebrew. Over time, that would change and become a name that we use for the Jews. The Bible itself will use it, but at this time, a Hebrew was kind of like calling somebody a gypsy in a bad way. So they're coming out of their holes where they've hidden themselves. And the men of the garrison hailed Jonathan and his armor bearer and said, "Come up to us and we'll show you a thing." That's not very well translated trash talk. Probably like, "Come up here, I got something for you." You ever say that before a basketball game or something, right? And Jonathan said to his armor bearer, "Come up after me, for the Lord has given them into the hand of Israel." Then Jonathan climbed up on his hands and feet, and his armor bearer after him, and they fell before Jonathan, and his armor bearer killed them after him. Jonathan knocked him down, the armor bearer finished him off. And that first strike which Jonathan and his armor bearer made killed about 20 men, within, as it were, about half a furrow's length in an acre of land. That is to say, 20 people in a very small area. They was just knocking them down. And there was panic in the camp, in the field, and among all the people. The garrison and the raiders trembled. The earth quaked, and it became a very great panic. So Israel is losing the battle, while Saul is dithering, asking God, "What do I do? What do I do?" The Lord is not honored by us constantly asking what to do when the solution is obvious. Saul, by virtue of the calling that God had placed upon him, had a responsibility to his people to defend them. So the idea, what are we supposed to do? That's an obvious answer. So you're going to go and ask God, what do we do now? It was a cloak for his fear. So Jonathan said, how about I take a shot? Maybe God will act for me. Maybe God will help us win the battle by ourselves. Jonathan's changing the game. Jonathan says, I am not going to sit here and let the whole country fall. If I die on my own, well, with just one man, but maybe God will do something amazing. God can do all things, and that's the kind of faith I want you to have. The miracle came. God sent an earthquake and helped, because he's like, finally, one person is willing to take me at my word and go for it. I think this is why Jonathan got on with David so well, because when Jonathan saw David fight Goliath, he goes, man, when I was a young man, that's how I was. I'm going to make sure David has everything he needs as he comes into the throne. In the same way, you can spend your whole life planning, praying, daydreaming, thinking about what you're going to do, reading another book, watching another podcast. Have you ever seen the movie Collateral? I don't know if I can quite recommend it, but I'll just say it talks about this a lot. The guy's been driving a taxi for years and years and years, yet he tells every customer he's got, I'm going to start my own limousine service. And he's got limo catalogs. He's got a picture of, the future in his mind, and yet he won't do anything about it. He just sits in his cab and drives it. Nothing wrong with that, except he had ambition and wasn't doing anything with it. He was sitting there. He needed to get up and change the game. And in the same way, you've got to be willing to do that too. You might be cloaking your fear in spirituality. Oh, I'm just carrying the cross that God gave me to bear. Are you sure that it's a cross that God gave you? Or are you afraid to put it down and pick up a new one? Are you afraid to try something harder? Are you afraid to try something that has better success potential but might result in your failure? Don't do that. There's a risk. But it's when you step out in faith and try things that the victory comes. So practically, you got to be willing to change the game. If you are bitter and saying, well, I work hard, how come nothing's working out for me? Are you putting your effort forward in the right things? You know what I'm saying? If you're trying to grow crops in the wintertime, you can plow as hard as you like, get up as early as you like, and try to keep that water unfrozen all you want. It's not going to happen. You've got to do it at a better opportunity. So, are you at the right job? Ask yourself that question. Are you in the right city? Are you in the right career? Are you taking the right approach to your ministry or to your creative endeavors? Ask the Lord, and he'll tell you. Ask yourself that and say, is it time for us to shake it up? Do we need to get up off the wall and see if there might not be a better opportunity? Do we need to try and see if we can win this battle by ourselves? For my part, I'm constantly looking as in, how could these services be better? The core is there. We're always going to be teaching the Bible, praying, singing, worshiping the Lord. But maybe this song has gotten a little tired. Is it time to shake it up? Do we need to do a different book of the Bible? Are we kind of getting tired of the same one? Do we have the same, sourpuss answering the doors every Sunday? Find somebody else. Do we need to change our building? Do we need to change our website? Do we need to plant in a different area if they're not responding? All of that is something you need to be constantly doing. If you're not evaluating the path you're on, you might walk a long time and end up nowhere. Don't be afraid to change it up. Don't get too attached to your plans. Sometimes you get, the perfect dream in your mind, and then it doesn't live up to that, and you don't want to give up the plan because it was perfect. It's never going to be perfect. If it's not working for you, you've got to get up and go. Find a place where your efforts will be rewarded and pour your efforts in there. If your boss is trying to keep you down and use you to make himself look good, get up and go work for somebody else. Go work for yourself maybe. At least, it'll be dangerous and you might fail, but at least you'll be working towards something where there is a possibility of success. There's a risk of exposure, but it's time for you to change the game. Get up and go. This has been Difference Makers. My name is Pastor Tyler Warner. Thank you so much for tuning in today here on BGTV. Please check us out at ironworks.media. We've got all sorts of resources available for you there. We've got another theology podcast that we do. We've got Bible studies. We've got books that are available, including 2 free ebooks that you can get if you sign up for our mailing list for free. And we'll be sending you all the news that's coming up. A lot of cool things happening in 2025. And if you want to find out more about the church, go to calvarychapeltrustville.com. Change the game. Go out there and make a difference.